What if the only thing keeping you stuck is the belief that you're not ready? This audiobook breaks through the noise of motivation culture and uncovers a quiet truth: the tools, the timing, and the strength they've been with you all along. You're not here to wait for life to change. You're here to build it. Starting right now, right where you stand. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "I could do it if only I had more time, more money, more support, more talent"? What if I told you that everything you're waiting for is already within you? You don't need the perfect conditions. You don't need more than what's in your hands right now. What you need is the courage to begin. This is a book about making progress without excuses. It's not theory, it's not hype, it's what works. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Trap of Not Enough. There's a moment, sometimes silent, sometimes loud, that happens before every dream. Before the book is written, before the business is started, before the story is told or the change is made. And in that moment, we face a voice. It doesn't shout, it whispers, but it's powerful enough to stop people in their tracks for years or even a lifetime. It says, "You're not ready. You don't have enough. You need to wait." And the scary part? It doesn't sound like fear. It sounds like logic. It sounds responsible. It sounds cautious and mature. You tell yourself you're just being realistic, that you're just waiting for a better time, that you'll start when things calm down, or when you're more experienced, or when you finally feel ready. But that day never seems to arrive. Instead, weeks pass, then months, then years. And the thing you wanted to do becomes a memory of what could have been. Because that lie, the one that said, "not yet," is a moving target. You never quite hit it. Every time you think you're close, the voice shifts the goalpost. Now it says you need even more time, even more money, even more perfection. It's not that you can't begin, it's that you've been trained to believe that beginning requires more than you already have. But here's the truth. That voice, the one saying you're not ready, isn't a guardian. It's a gatekeeper, and it guards nothing but the illusion of safety. It keeps you inside the comfort zone, not because you're incapable, but because it knows that once you start, you become unstoppable. At first, this voice that says, "not yet," only shows up when you're about to do something big, something bold, something new. But over time, it starts showing up in the small things too. You don't post that idea online because you think it's not good enough. You don't speak up in that meeting because you think your opinion doesn't matter enough. You don't apply for that opportunity because you assume someone else is more qualified. And without realizing it, not enough becomes a lens. It's no longer just a thought, it becomes how you see the world. It filters everything. You stop seeing your strengths. You only see your flaws. You don't notice how far you've come. You only focus on how far you still have to go. It's like wearing tinted glasses all the time. No matter what happens, everything looks dim. You could have 90% of what you need, but your focus will always land on the missing 10%. And the worst part is, you start believing that this is just how life works, that some people are born ready, and others like you just have to wait. But readiness isn't something you're given, it's something you claim. The idea that you have to be enough before you can begin is backwards. In reality, it's starting that makes you grow. It's action that builds confidence. It's forward motion that sharpens your skill, toughens your mindset, and reveals your power. And yet, most people sit on the sidelines. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't care, but because they've been taught to measure themselves against imaginary standards they were never meant to live by. Standards set by highlight, reels, social media, perfect timelines. Standards that say you need to be rich by 30, successful by 25, married by 28, fearless every day. And if you're not, then you must not be enough. But that's a lie. And you don't have to keep believing it. So let's ask the real question. What does enough actually mean? What would it take for you to finally feel like you're ready? More money, more knowledge, more courage. Even if you had those things, would you really feel different inside? Or would the finish line just move again farther down the road, hidden behind one more obstacle? The truth is, most people don't know what enough looks like. They just know what they think they're missing. And that becomes a never-ending chase. You run in circles trying to collect all the things you think you need, not realizing the real strength isn't in the tools, it's in how you use them. Enough isn't something outside of you. It's a mindset. It's the moment you stop chasing perfection and start using what's already in your hands. You might not have every answer. You might not feel confident. You might not have the ideal setup, the perfect support system, or the clearest vision. But what if that's okay? What if you stopped waiting for perfection and decided that progress is enough? Starting isn't about being certain. It's about being willing. Willing to risk being wrong. Willing to fail forward. Willing to say, I might not be enough for everything, but I'm enough to take this first step. That one step, as small or clumsy as it might be, can break the cycle. Because momentum doesn't come from planning. It comes from doing. So many people are out there with more talent than you, more resources than you, more connections than you, but they're doing nothing with it. They're stuck in the same trap. They're still waiting. But you have a chance to break the pattern, to stop focusing on what's missing and start acting on what's already within reach. That's what makes the difference. At some point, we all arrive at a quiet crossroads. We're standing still, heart racing, mind spinning, staring at the thing we've always wanted to do. Maybe it's a business idea. Maybe it's a story you want to tell. Maybe it's just a better, stronger version of your life. And in that moment, the voice of "not enough" gets louder. It throws every reason at you to delay. Now's not the time. You'll embarrass yourself. You don't have what it takes. And then, just beneath that noise, there's something softer. A flicker of clarity. It says, but what if you tried anyway? What if you began? That's the moment everything changes. Not because you suddenly have more, but because you've chosen to stop letting lack define your limits. You don't need to be confident to begin. You don't need all the answers. You don't need certainty. You just need a tiny shift in belief that what you have right now is enough to get started. Because every person who has ever done something great, every builder, creator, author, teacher, parent, leader, they didn't begin with everything. They began with what they had, and they built the rest along the way. So if you're hearing that voice today, the one that says you're not ready, you don't need to argue with it. You don't even need to silence it. Just move anyway. Move forward with trembling hands. Take the first step with doubt still in your chest. Show up, messy, unpolished, imperfect, but show up. Because the trap of not enough only has power when you stay still. The moment you take action, you break the loop. You prove to yourself that you can do more than you thought, even if you don't feel fully prepared. And once you take that first small action, everything changes. Your confidence grows. Your mindset shifts. And most importantly, the next step becomes clearer. That's the secret. You don't wait for confidence to act. You act your way into confidence. Start where you stand, with what you know, with what you have, with who you are, because that's always enough. Chapter 2. Your tools are already in reach. We often imagine that the people who succeed in life had some kind of head start, a secret advantage, a better network, more money, more resources, more clarity. But if you peel back the stories, look past the headlines, dig beneath the surface, you'll discover something far more important. Most people who create something impactful, a business, a book, a life of meaning, didn't have everything. In fact, many of them started with less than you might have right now. Less money, less support, less access, sometimes even less hope. But what they had, and what you already have, is a willingness to use what's within reach. You may be tempted to believe that you can't begin until you upgrade your tools. Better gear, more knowledge, professional setups, perfect circumstances. But that belief is the same trap in new packaging. It turns tools into excuses. It convinces you that your limitations are permanent. And worst of all, it makes you forget how powerful you already are. Here's the truth. You don't need better tools. You need bolder use of the ones you already hold. Let's be honest, look around you right now. Chances are you're holding a phone. Inside that phone is a camera, a microphone, a notebook, a publishing platform, a global communication device, and access to the sum of human knowledge. And yet we use it to scroll, to compare, to distract. What if you used it to create instead? To connect, to document, to build, to share? You see, the power is never in the tool itself. The power is in how you choose to use it. When people think of tools, they often picture external things. Better equipment, fancy software, professional-grade everything. But some of the most powerful tools you'll ever own aren't outside of you. They're within. They've been there all along, waiting to be picked up. Your voice is a tool. The way you speak, the stories you tell, the honesty in your tone that matters. The sound of your voice could be the exact thing someone out there needs to hear. Your perspective is a tool. Nobody else has lived your life, seen what you've seen, overcome what you've overcome. Your story may not feel special to you, but it carries wisdom that can only come from your unique path. Your pain is a tool. Yes, your pain. The heartbreak, the struggle, the setback, the loss. These things weren't given to you just to hurt you. They were given to shape you, to equip you with the kind of empathy, grit, and depth you can't fake. Pain, when healed and understood, becomes one of the most valuable tools for connection and growth. Your creativity is a tool. You might think you're not creative because you don't paint or write poetry, but creativity isn't limited to the arts. Creativity is how you solve problems. It's how you adapt. It's how you turn what little you have into something that works anyway. Even your limitations can become tools. Think about that. Sometimes, the very things you see as obstacles are actually your sharpest edges. They force you to think differently. They push you to be resourceful. They teach you discipline. They give your work a flavor, a texture, a rawness that polished perfection can't replicate. But if you never learn to see these things as tools, you'll never use them. You'll keep chasing what you think you're missing and completely overlook the powerful arsenal already within your reach. Imagine what could happen if you stopped focusing on what you don't have and started doubling down on everything you do. There's a word that doesn't get celebrated enough. A word far more powerful than talent, intelligence, or even discipline. That word is resourcefulness. Resourcefulness is what allows people with little to create a lot. It's the quiet, gritty skill of figuring it out anyway. Of saying, I may not have everything, but I'll work with what I've got. Some people wait for the ideal conditions to begin. They wait for the best tools, the clearest roadmap, the right moment. Others begin with improvised plans, limited tools, borrowed time, and a decision to try anyway. And those are the ones who often go the farthest. Because resourcefulness is a kind of superpower. It turns a cracked phone into a film studio. It turns a journal into a business plan. It turns your kitchen table into a launch pad. It's not about how many resources you have, it's about how many reasons you're willing to stop making. Think about a sculptor. They don't start with a masterpiece. They start with a block of stone, rough, heavy, unformed. Their job is to see what's inside that block and patiently chip away everything that's not part of the final form. That's what resourcefulness does. It looks at the raw material of your life, your skills, your struggles, your relationships, your environment, and asks, what can I make out of this right now? Not someday. Not when the budget's bigger. Not when everything is perfect. Now. And here's the beautiful twist. The more you practice resourcefulness, the more skilled you become. You start solving problems faster. You stop panicking when things go wrong. You adapt. You build. You become dangerous in the best possible way because people who can do more with less are unstoppable. If you're waiting for more before you start, ask yourself this. What if the challenge in front of you was meant to be solved with exactly what you already have? What if the limits you see are the very pressure that will make you creative, focused, and resilient? Because resourcefulness isn't the absence of struggle. It's the decision to make progress anyway. Let's talk about proof. Not theory, not wishful thinking, but actual, real-world examples of people who stopped waiting for better tools and started building with what they had. Let's start with a name you probably know, J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter became a billion-dollar franchise, she was a single mother living off government assistance. She wrote her first manuscript in coffee shops, scribbling chapters while her baby slept beside her. She had no connections, no powerful agent, no massive budget. She had an idea, a pen, some paper, and a fierce commitment to use them. The rest, she figured out as she went. Or take Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak starting Apple in a garage. No funding, no fancy headquarters, just a homemade circuit board and a shared obsession with building something that worked. They weren't trying to impress anyone, they were simply using the tools they had. That garage became the birthplace of a company that would eventually change the world. There's Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, who started her brand with just $50 in savings. She didn't hire a marketing team. She didn't have a factory or a product development department. She cold-called manufacturers, wrote her own patent, and did all her pitching by herself. She built a billion-dollar empire out of what she had in front of her, not what she wished she had. Or think about the millions of people who don't go viral but still change their lives. The artist who starts drawing with one notebook and a ballpoint pen. The YouTuber who records videos with nothing more than a phone taped to a lamp. The coach who grows an entire business through voice notes and DMs. These people didn't succeed because they waited for perfect tools. They succeeded because they didn't wait at all. They looked around and said, "This might not be ideal, but it's enough. Let's go." The biggest breakthroughs are often built out of scrap, out of the things others overlook, out of limitations turned into leverage. And guess what? That potential exists in your life too. You already have a handful of tools. They may not be the ones you want, but they're the ones you've got. And those are the exact tools meant for your journey. The question is, will you pick them up and use them? Or will you keep searching for something shinier while the real opportunity quietly passes you by? You don't need the perfect setup. You need a starting point and the courage to claim it. That notebook with scribbled ideas, that's your blueprint. That messy draft on your phone, that's your launch pad. That rough voice memo you almost deleted, that might be someone else's turning point. We often romanticize other people's success and forget what it looked like at the beginning. Success never looks glamorous at the start. It looks like late nights. It looks like good enough for now. It looks like borrowed gear, shaky voices, small audiences. But it also looks like discipline. It looks like clarity. It looks like someone who said, "I'm not waiting anymore. I'm building with what I've got." And that's the turning point. That's the shift most people never make. They get stuck thinking, if I just had more. But you don't need more. You need to see more of what's already in your hands, more of what you've survived, more of what you've already learned. Your tools don't need to be shiny. They need to be used with boldness, used with belief, used with the kind of energy that says, this might not be perfect, but it's powerful. And here's what's most important. Your tools will multiply when you start using them. Clarity comes from action. Confidence comes from doing. Momentum comes from movement. The very act of starting with what you have creates more of what you need. More growth, more skill, more opportunity, more doors opening, not because they magically appear, but because you're finally walking toward them. And so, as this chapter closes, ask yourself one simple question. What do I already have that I'm not using? Write it down. Say it out loud. And then, act on it. Not tomorrow. Not when it's easier. Now. Because what you already have, it's enough to begin. Chapter 3. The Magic of Movement. There's a myth we've all been sold, the idea that we need to feel motivated before we act, that we need some spark of inspiration, some perfect alignment of mood and mindset before we begin. So we wait. We scroll. We look for quotes, watch videos, read books, hoping something will light that fire. But the truth is simple. Motivation isn't the cause of movement, it's the result. Action comes first. The spark comes after. Think of a train. At a dead stop, it's heavy, hard to move. It takes massive energy to push it even a few feet. But once it starts rolling, even a little, it gains momentum. It becomes harder to stop. That's how your life works. That's how your goals work. That's how your mind works. If you sit and wait to feel ready, you're letting inertia win. You're making comfort your home. But when you take even a tiny step, write a sentence, record a 30-second voice memo, take a walk, make the call, something shifts. Suddenly, the fog lifts. The doubt gets quieter. You're not thinking about the whole journey, you're just moving. And that movement becomes momentum. You don't need a full tank to start the car. You just need to turn the key. One of the greatest enemies of progress isn't fear. It isn't failure. It's overthinking. Overthinking is dressed like preparation. It looks productive. It feels safe. But really, it's a trap, a slow, looping cycle that drains your energy without creating a single result. You start with a good idea, maybe something bold. You feel excited for a moment. But then the questions come. What if it's not good enough? What if people judge it? What if I mess it up? What if I start and I can't keep going? Your brain wants to protect you from pain, so it spins in circles, offering you every possible scenario, every possible risk. And while it spins, time slips away. This is where most people stay stuck. Not because they aren't capable, but because they believe they need more certainty before they act. But certainty doesn't come from thinking. It comes from doing, from movement. You don't become a writer by planning the perfect book. You become one by writing a single sentence. You don't get clarity by standing still. You get clarity by moving through the fog. Even the smallest step, something that takes 30 seconds, has the power to snap you out of overthinking and back into your life. That's the magic of action. It anchors you. It grounds you. It silences the part of your brain that only knows how to guess, worry, and stall. You don't need to solve the whole problem. You just need to move forward by 1 inch. Because once you do, the next inch appears. Then the next. And before you know it, you're not thinking about whether you can. You're proving that you already are. Here's something few people understand. Confidence isn't a personality trait. It's not something you're born with. It's not something you get one day when you finally feel good enough. Confidence is built. It's earned not in big moments, but in small, private decisions to keep showing up. It doesn't come from success. It comes from reps, from trying, from doing the thing, especially when it's awkward, messy, unpolished. You become confident by being willing to look foolish at first. You become confident by surviving your own doubts. You become confident by acting, even when you're scared and realizing nothing terrible happens. Think about it. The first time you did anything hard, driving, speaking, lifting weights, learning a new skill, you were shaky. You were unsure. But you did it anyway. And that one rep, that first attempt, gave you reference. You now knew what it felt like. And each time after that, you felt a little less fear, a little more ownership, a little more belief. That's how it works. Action builds evidence. Evidence builds belief. And belief real, earned belief builds unstoppable confidence. This is why movement matters so much. Because every time you act, every time you choose to move instead of wait, you're collecting proof. Proof that you can handle discomfort. Proof that you don't need to be perfect. Proof that you're growing. It doesn't take giant leaps. It just takes consistent motion. A tiny act repeated over time changes who you are at your core. You stop being someone who says, one day, and you become someone who says, I already started. You stop being someone who watches others move. You become someone who builds momentum with every step you take. And that momentum? It starts rewriting your identity. Not just what you believe is possible, but who you believe you are. You don't need a master plan. You don't need to map out the next 5 years. You don't even need to know where this is going. You just need to move. Today. With what you have. From where you are. Start small. Start with something that feels almost laughably easy. Write one sentence. Record one thought. Clean one drawer. Make one phone call. Walk 5 minutes. Because it's not about the task. It's about the identity you're practicing. Every time you take action, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Someone who doesn't freeze in fear. Someone who doesn't wait for perfection. Someone who doesn't talk about what they'll do someday. Someone who moves. And when you move, even a little something in the world responds. You start seeing things differently. You feel a shift. Your energy changes. You start to believe, maybe I can actually do this. And that belief? That's the engine. Here's what's wild. Once you're in motion, new doors appear. Ideas come to you. People notice. Opportunities show up that you couldn't have seen from the sidelines. The world doesn't respond to thoughts. It responds to movement. So if you've been waiting for the right time, this is it. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. If you've been waiting to feel ready, you won't. But that doesn't matter. Because you don't need to feel ready. You need to move anyway. One step, then another, then another. That's the magic. That's how lives change. That's how new stories begin, not with a roar, but with a whisper and a walk. And as you move, keep this truth close to your chest. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are becoming. One step at a time. One moment at a time. And the only thing required of you is to keep moving. Chapter 4. Fuel from failure. No one wants to fail. That's natural. We're wired to avoid pain, embarrassment, rejection. We think failure means something is wrong with us. We think it proves the doubters right. We think it means we should have never tried in the first place. But the truth is much simpler and far more powerful. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a requirement for it, not an obstacle. A step. A part of the process you cannot skip. Think about it. How do you learn anything real without messing up first? How do you improve at anything without trial, error, adjustment? Success isn't a straight line. It's a staircase built out of lessons, wrong turns, bruises, revisions, second tries. Every person you admire has failed, more times than they've succeeded. They've been laughed at, ignored, rejected. They've launched things that flopped. They've been told, this won't work. And still they kept going. Because they understood something. Failure is feedback. That's it. Not judgment. Not punishment. Just information. It shows you what didn't work. It points to what needs to be changed, improved, adjusted. And in that way, failure isn't breaking you, it's building you. Deeper, sharper, tougher, wiser. It teaches you the kind of lessons no textbook or online course ever could. It humbles you. It strengthens your resolve. It strips away your ego and reminds you that this journey isn't about looking perfect, it's about becoming real. The ones who win in the end are not the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who get back up with more clarity, more hunger, and more heart. Failure doesn't just disappoint you, it stings. It hits your pride. It shakes your confidence. It makes you question not just what you did, but who you are. You ask yourself, am I even good at this? Did I just waste my time? Was everyone right to doubt me? Those questions are heavy, but they're also familiar because every person who's ever tried something meaningful has faced them. Here's the hard truth. Failure doesn't just attack your results. It attacks your identity. It wants to convince you that because something failed, you are a failure. But those are not the same thing. Let me say that again. Something failing does not mean you are a failure. It means you're in motion. It means you're learning in real time. It means you're not on the sidelines anymore, you're in the arena. And people in the arena get hit. They fall down. They bleed a little. But they also grow stronger in ways that people watching from the outside never will. The key is this: don't let failure become final. Don't let it shut the door. Don't let it make you smaller, quieter, more careful. Let it sharpen you. Let it teach you. Let it stretch your emotional range. Let it show you who you really are, not when things are easy, but when they're messy. Because this is where character gets built. Not in comfort, but in course correction. Not in the wins, but in the recovery. Failure will teach you how to rebuild, how to simplify, how to listen, how to trust yourself when you've already seen what it feels like to fall and still choose to rise. And that decision to get back up, not with bitterness, but with intention, that's not weakness. That's mastery. Failure is inevitable. But staying broken by failure, that's optional. You can build a mind that doesn't just survive failure, it uses it. Not by ignoring the pain, not by pretending it didn't matter, but by turning failure into a data point, not a death sentence. Here's how. First, learn to expect it. Not in a pessimistic way, but in a realistic one. If you're aiming for something big, something meaningful, failure is a normal part of the road. It's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're in motion. Every person who builds something worthwhile builds a history of missteps, setbacks, and restarts. So when it comes, don't panic. Don't shame yourself. Just nod and say, "Ah, there you are. I've been expecting you. Let's learn something." Second, separate the emotion from the evidence. When something fails, your first reaction will be emotional. Frustration, embarrassment, maybe even grief. That's okay. Let it pass. But once it does, zoom out. Ask, what actually happened? What part was in my control? What part wasn't? What do I now know that I didn't before? Those answers are gold. That's the real value of the failure. And it's only available to people willing to reflect instead of retreat. Third, use failure to refine your process, not redefine your identity. You're not failing because you're not good enough. You're failing because you're growing, because you're testing things, because you're trying. And that is a million miles ahead of sitting in safety and wondering, what if? People think success is about being right. But real success comes from being willing to be wrong over and over and still keep showing up. That's how you build a mind that doesn't flinch, a mind that doesn't crumble under rejection, a mind that sees failure and says, "Good, now we know. Let's adjust and keep moving." That kind of mindset is rare, but it's available to anyone who decides, "I won't let setbacks define me. I will let them shape me." Here's the most important thing you'll hear in this entire chapter. You are allowed to fail and still be worthy of winning. Read that again. Say it out loud if you need to, because most people don't believe it. They think once they fall, they've lost credibility. Once they mess up, they've lost their shot. Once they feel that sting of rejection, they're done. But that's not how real life works. That's not how success works. That's not how you work. You are not broken because you've failed. You are becoming through it. You are collecting scars not as signs of weakness, but as proof that you've lived, loved, tried, risked, reached. Those scars tell stories that the flawless can never tell. They say, "I showed up, I got knocked down, and I got back up anyway." So if you've failed recently, good. That means you're alive. It means you're in the game. It means you're building something that matters. And if you've been afraid to try because of the risk of failing, try anyway. Because failure is not fatal unless you decide to stay down. Your worth is not measured by your wins. It's measured by your willingness to rise. Again, and again, and again. There will always be people who only start when the conditions are perfect, when they're certain it will work, when they're guaranteed applause. But there's another kind of person, the one who builds in the silence, who gets bruised and keeps going, who fails and learns faster, who doesn't wait for safety but moves with courage. Be that person, because failure, it isn't the end of your story. It's the part where your character is revealed, and maybe it's the chapter that shows the world just how powerful you've become. Chapter 5, The Mindset of Enough. We live in a world that profits from your belief that you are not enough, not smart enough, not rich enough, not attractive enough, not productive enough. From the moment you wake up, you're surrounded by messages telling you what you're missing. They say, "You'll be happy when you have this. You'll feel confident once you fix that. You'll be successful when you reach that next level." And so, we chase. We chase better jobs, more money, newer gadgets, better bodies, shinier titles, faster cars. We don't even stop to question if we actually want those things. We just assume they're what's next. We're taught to treat enough like a moving finish line. And every time we get closer, the line moves again. The goalposts shift. The stakes get higher. And just when you think you've made it, there's someone doing it bigger, louder, better. So we sprint harder. We try to fix ourselves with more effort, more hustle, more pressure, until we burn out or break down. All in the name of being enough. But what if the problem isn't that we're missing something? What if the problem is that we've been lied to, taught to measure our worth with someone else's ruler? What if the voice that says you're not enough yet was never yours to begin with? Because here's the truth. You don't need more to be whole. You don't need more to be worthy. You don't need more to matter. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not a work in progress that needs constant fixing. You are a life in motion, and enough is not a destination, it's a mindset. One you can choose today. Comparison is a quiet thief. It doesn't announce its arrival. It creeps in slowly through a scroll, a conversation, a comment, and suddenly you're no longer content. You were proud of your progress 5 minutes ago, but now that you've seen someone else doing it better, you feel behind. Small, inadequate, late. It doesn't matter how much you've grown, how far you've come, how much you've overcome. If someone else seems farther, faster, or flashier, your progress feels like it's not enough anymore. And this is where the damage begins. You stop running your race and start looking sideways. You start doubting your pace, your choices, your timing. You forget that your journey was never meant to match anyone else's because it was never theirs to walk. Comparison poisons your peace. It tells you that success is a competition, that if someone else is ahead, it must mean you're behind, that their wins somehow reduce the value of your own. But here's the truth. Someone else's progress doesn't erase yours. Their growth doesn't cancel out yours. Their path has nothing to do with your purpose. You are not on their timeline. You are not in their season. You don't carry their story, their past, or their calling. So why should you expect to match their steps? Every tree grows at a different rate. Every wave reaches the shore on its own rhythm, and every human life unfolds in a completely unique sequence. You are not here to compete. You are here to become. To become more present, to become more grounded, to become more fully alive in your own skin, not theirs. Because the moment you stop comparing is the moment you start owning your life. And owning your life is where enough truly begins. So much of our stress doesn't come from doing too little. It comes from chasing someone else's definition of enough. We've been told that success looks a certain way, that it lives in numbers, income, followers, sales, titles, square footage. And if we don't hit those numbers, then we must be behind, or worse, unworthy. But who decided those definitions? Who told you that the only version of a successful life is the one that looks impressive on paper? That it has to be big, bold, loud, and publicly validated? Because here's the truth, most people don't say out loud. Success is personal. It's not a finish line you cross. It's a rhythm you live in. Success might look like peace of mind, like being present for your kids, like choosing rest without guilt, like waking up and being excited about your day even if no one claps for it. Abundance might not be about having more. It might be about needing less, about looking at your life and realizing, I don't have everything, but I'm grateful for what I do have, and I'm going to use it well. Real success is quiet. It doesn't always make headlines. It doesn't always go viral. Sometimes it's as simple as staying true to your values in a world full of noise. Sometimes it's walking away from something shiny because it doesn't align with who you are. And you know what happens when you define success on your own terms? You stop rushing. You stop proving. You stop running a race that never ends. Instead, you breathe. You build slowly. You grow intentionally. You find joy in the process, not just the outcome. You stop feeling like you're behind because you realize you're exactly where you're meant to be. That is the mindset of enough. Not scarcity, not laziness, but sovereignty. The ability to say, this is my life, and I get to define what winning looks like. Here's something most people never realize. Enough is not something you earn. It's something you choose. It's not a reward that comes after you've done enough. It's not waiting for you at the end of a checklist or a career or a scale or a bank account. It's available now, right here, in this moment, but it takes courage to choose it. Because when you say, I am enough, what I have is enough, this moment is enough, you step off the treadmill that everyone else is still running. You stop proving. You stop performing. You start living. Choosing enough doesn't mean you give up on growth. It doesn't mean you don't have goals. It means you stop believing that your worth is tied to those goals. You can still dream big. You can still build boldly. But now you're building from fullness, not from fear. You're creating because you love it, not because you're trying to earn a seat at the table. You're learning because you're curious, not because you think something's broken in you. When you move from a place of enough, you become more generous, more grounded, more powerful. Because you're no longer reaching outward for validation, you're standing firm in your own center. And yes, you'll still have hard days. You'll still feel the pull of comparison, the echo of doubt. But now you know the truth. You know that even on your worst days, you don't lose your worth. You are not a problem to fix. You are a life to live. So take a breath. Look around. Look within. You already have what it takes. You already are enough. And you always were. Success is often loud. It gets applause, attention, awards. But failure is quiet, and that's why it's powerful. Because when you fail, the world steps back. And in that silence, you finally hear yourself. You hear your inner critic. You hear your unmet expectations. You hear your raw emotions, disappointment, shame, even rage. But if you sit in that silence long enough, you also start to hear truth. Not the loud, anxious noise, but the truth under it. That wasn't the end. That was the beginning of clarity. Now I know what not to do, which means I'm one step closer to knowing what works. Failure teaches you to pause, to reflect, to reevaluate your motives. It forces you to slow down long enough to ask, was I doing this for the right reasons? Was I chasing someone else's dream? Was I measuring my success in someone else's terms? Success might push you forward, but failure teaches you to turn inward. And from that depth you rise smarter, cleaner, truer. There's something uniquely painful about failing in public. It's one thing to miss the mark quietly. It's another to fall short where others can see you, where people you love or compete with witness your loss. This is why so many people never try. Because the fear of embarrassment outweighs their desire to grow. But here's the reality. Anyone who watches you try and judges you for failing isn't building anything. The loudest critics are usually standing still. The builders, the doers, they respect the fall because they've been there. And the people who truly matter, they aren't looking for your perfection. They're watching how you handle the pressure, how you carry yourself in the low moments, how you regroup, reframe, and rebuild. That's where real respect is earned. So if you're worried about what they'll think when you fail, remember, it's not about them. It's about you, your integrity, your resilience, your ability to rise. And every time you fail forward, you give permission to others to try, to fall, and to grow. That's leadership. That's impact. That's legacy. What you fear most often controls you. And for most people, failure is a fear that paralyzes them. But here's a powerful truth. The more familiar you become with failure, the less power it holds. If you try 10 things and 3 work, you've gained 3 wins. If you try 100 things and 20 work, you've gained 20 wins. But you only get those wins by building a relationship with failure. You stop treating it like a monster. You start treating it like a teacher. And over time, something incredible happens. You lose your fear of falling. You stop freezing up. You stop hesitating. Because now you've failed before and you survived. You've failed before, and you learned. You've failed before and you're still here, stronger than ever. So, make failure part of the process. Get comfortable with missing the mark. Embrace the no, the rejection, the awkward moment. Because every time you face failure, you become bolder. And boldness, that's what gets things done. We live in a world that rewards perfection and punishes honesty. We're praised for what we get right. We're celebrated when we succeed. But when we fall short, we go quiet. We don't talk about the rejection letter, the product that flopped, the relationship that ended, the risk that didn't pay off. We hide the mess. We clean up the narrative. We act like everything's fine, even when it's not. Why? Because we think failure disqualifies us. We think if people saw where we really struggled, they'd stop listening. We think it's better to pretend we've always been confident, consistent, successful. But here's the paradox. People don't connect with your perfection. They connect with your truth. Because truth is human. Truth is raw. Truth makes people breathe easier, like, oh, you too? You've been through that too? Then maybe I'm not as alone as I thought. Your story, the one with the broken pieces and missed chances and honest lessons, that story might be the exact one someone else needs to hear. They don't need someone who's never fallen. They need someone who's fallen and found their footing again. Someone who didn't give up. Someone who didn't quit when it all fell apart. Someone who looked at failure, felt the pain, and still chose to keep going. That kind of story has power. It doesn't just inspire, it guides. It tells the person behind you, I've been there, and here's how I made it through. And that's what leadership really is, not showing others how perfect you are, but showing them what's possible when things get hard. You don't have to frame your failure as some dramatic turning point. You don't have to make it sound noble or neat. Just be honest. Tell the truth. Tell them what you learned. Tell them what it cost. Tell them how you grew. Because sometimes hearing someone else say, I failed, and I'm still here, is all it takes to convince someone else to stay in the game. And when you do that, when you use your pain to light someone else's path, you're not just surviving your failure, you're transforming it into something sacred, something useful, something real. So don't waste your failure. Don't bury it under shame. Don't polish it into a story that isn't true. Own it. Share it. Offer it up. Because what broke you in private might be what helps someone else rise in public. And there is no greater redemption than that. Chapter 6. Start where you stand. Every journey starts the same way. Not with a grand gesture. Not with the perfect plan. Not with fireworks or clarity or applause. It starts with a decision. A quiet, courageous, deeply personal decision. I'm done waiting. You've read the books. You've heard the advice. You've made the lists, downloaded the templates, watched the videos, highlighted the quotes. You've hoped. You've hesitated. You've doubted. And still, something in you remains. A flicker, a pull, a quiet fire. The voice that says, I want to begin, but not someday, not when everything is ready, not once I have it all figured out. Now, here, from exactly where I'm standing. You may not feel brave. You may not feel strong. You may not feel clear. But none of those are required to begin. You don't need full confidence, just a little courage. You don't need a finish line, just a first step. This chapter isn't a lesson. It's a call. A call to stop overthinking. To stop rehearsing your story in your mind and start writing it in real time. To stop postponing your purpose until you feel more prepared. Because you've already prepared more than you realize. You've survived. You've grown. You've collected wisdom. You've carried dreams long enough now, it's time to deliver on them. Not when you're perfect. Not when you're certain. Now, here, today, there's a story we tell ourselves that we'll start when we've fixed what's broken, when we're more confident, when we've healed a little more, when we're better, stronger, cleaner, calmer. But what if that's just another stall tactic? What if it's not self-care, but self-doubt wearing a disguise? We say, I'll start when I have more time. I'll start when I've figured out my routine. I'll start once I've overcome this fear, solved this issue, lost this weight, made this money, cleared this calendar. But let's be honest, there will always be something. There will always be a reason to wait. Always a part of you that still feels unfinished. And that's okay, because you don't need to be finished to start. You just need to be willing. This idea that you must become someone better before you're allowed to take action is one of the most powerful lies you've ever been told. And it's kept millions of people stuck in cycles of self-improvement with no outward movement. But here's the truth. You are allowed to be a work in progress and make progress at the same time. You're allowed to take action with fear in your chest. You're allowed to build while still breaking old habits. You're allowed to create while still carrying self-doubt. You don't need a clean life. You need a clear decision. Right now, in your current body, in your current mind, in your current season, you are already enough to begin. Not next month. Not when you've read 3 more books. Not when you finally feel ready. Start where you stand. Not where you wish you were. Not where you think you should be. Exactly where you are. This is the most honest, most powerful place to begin. Because anything built from here, from reality, from truth, will be real. And that's where lasting change lives. In action, not imagination. Perfection is a trap. A pretty one. A seductive one. But a trap nonetheless. It whispers. Wait until it's flawless. Wait until you know exactly what to do. Don't embarrass yourself by starting sloppy. And so, we polish. We tweak. We prepare. And prepare. And prepare. Until preparation becomes the project. Until planning becomes a substitute for progress. Here's what no one tells you. You will never plan your way into clarity. You will never strategize your way into certainty. You get clarity by doing. You find rhythm by moving. You gain insight by trying and failing and adjusting again and again. Progress isn't neat. It's rarely clean. It's almost never on schedule. Real growth? It's loud. It's awkward. It's messy as hell. But it moves. And movement, even clumsy, imperfect, nervous movement, is where momentum begins. You don't need to know every step of the path. You just need to take the next one. The smallest possible step that gets you out of your head and into your life. Write a bad first sentence. Record a shaky first video. Launch the unfinished version. Speak up, even if your voice cracks. Because action teaches you what planning never could. It shows you how things actually feel. What works, what doesn't. What matters and what doesn't. What your next move really is, not in theory, but in truth. So stop waiting for perfection. Start reaching for motion, even if it's messy, even if it's slow. Because messy forward is how everything real begins. There's a strange kind of pressure in the world today. The pressure to go big, go fast, be bold from the beginning, to launch huge, to succeed publicly, to impress quickly. But here's the truth behind most overnight success stories. They didn't start big. They started quiet, small, invisible, with shaky confidence and a basic idea. But small doesn't mean insignificant. Small means focused. Small means manageable. Small means intentional. Starting small is smart, not weak. It gives you room to learn without the pressure of being perfect. It gives you time to build real skill, not just hype. It gives you the space to fail safely and grow deeply. You don't plant a seed and expect a tree tomorrow. You water it. You care for it. You give it light, time, and room to grow. And in that quiet process, something strong begins to take root. The same is true for your dreams. The same is true for your healing, for your work, your creativity, your leadership, your story. The loudest voices might try to convince you that big is better, but deep roots grow in silence. So don't rush to make noise. Start by making progress. Take the smallest step you can take today, and let that step be enough. Let it count. Let it compound. Because those small actions done consistently become the foundation that everything strong is built on. Small is not your fallback. It's your superpower. It's how you start, where you stand, and build something real. It's easy to start when you're proud of where you are, when your life feels shiny, when your highlight reel is aligned, when the version of you that's showing up is polished, presentable, and Instagram ready. But what about when things aren't neat? What about the chapters you don't post? What about the part of your story that still hurts? The years you regret? The mistakes that still echo in your memory? Most people try to leave those pieces out. They try to clean up their journey before they begin. They wait to start until their past feels less heavy, less complicated. But here's the shift that changes everything. You don't have to overcome your story before you start. You just have to own it. Own the failure. Own the heartbreak. Own the detour. Own the lost time, the bad choices, the time you gave too much to the wrong people or the wrong dream. Because here's what no one tells you. You don't build power by hiding your past. You build power by integrating it, by seeing it, naming it, and realizing all of it was part of your preparation. That mistake, it taught you how to listen better. That relationship, it showed you what you no longer tolerate. That job that broke you down, it lit the match that made you chase freedom. Every loss, every mess, every hard left turn. It shaped you, not into a broken version of yourself, but into a deeper, realer version of who you're meant to be. And guess what? That raw truth, the one you've tried to hide, that's what connects people to you. Because everyone is tired of the filters, tired of the perfect brands, tired of the lie that success must be smooth and shiny and emotionless. People are craving real. They're craving someone who says, "I've been there, and I'm still here." So if you're waiting to clean up your story before you start, stop. If you're waiting to be proud of every chapter before you publish the next stop, start from inside the real story. Start with the pain still healing. Start with the doubt still whispering. Start with the mess still visible. Because when you start from that kind of honesty, there is nothing anyone can take from you. You're not pretending. You're not performing. You're showing up with truth. And truth is the most magnetic, unstoppable, unshakable foundation you'll ever build on. So own your story, all of it. The polished pieces and the ones still being written. Because you don't become powerful by erasing who you've been. You become powerful by bringing all of it with you. Let's talk about time. Because time might be the biggest excuse most people make, and the deepest truth they ignore. We say it constantly, casually, almost without thinking. Now's just not the right time. I'll do it after this season passes. Once things settle down, then I'll start. And on the surface, it sounds reasonable. Who wouldn't want to start something important when they feel calm, focused, and fully ready? But here's the dangerous part. For most people, that right time, It never comes. Because life never slows down just to make room for your courage. The calendar won't clear itself for your dreams. The world won't pause and say, "Okay now, everything's perfect." You may begin. You'll always have something pulling at you. Bills to pay, people to care for, anxiety to manage, old wounds to deal with, uncertainty about the future. But if you keep waiting for a quiet, conflict-free, totally confident moment to take action, you'll look up years from now and realize that life didn't stop, but you did. And here's the truth no one likes to admit. We don't wait because of timing. We wait because of fear. Fear of what others will say. Fear that we'll fail again. Fear that we're not good enough yet. So we put it off. We delay the work. We delay the healing. We delay the creation. And we tell ourselves that we're just being smart. But deep down, we know we're playing small. Because when you say, "I'll start later," what you're really saying is, "I don't believe in myself right now." But what if time isn't the problem? What if the real question isn't, "When will I be ready?" But instead, "What can I do with what I've got right now?" Because here's what's real. Someone with less time than you is already creating something powerful. Someone with more chaos than you is already writing the first page. Someone with just as much fear as you is already showing up and making it work anyway. They didn't wait. And neither should you. You don't need perfect timing. You need decision. A decision to stop putting your purpose on hold. A decision to treat today as your green light. A decision to turn now into your starting line, not your excuse. Because while you're waiting for the right time, time isn't waiting for you. So many people talk about confidence like it's something you either have or you don't. Like it's a switch you flip or a gift you're born with. But the truth, confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you earn. And you earn it through one thing, evidence. Your brain doesn't respond to hype. It doesn't respond to motivation. It responds to what it sees you do consistently. If all your actions point toward hiding, quitting, postponing, avoiding, your brain believes you can't handle pressure. It believes your ideas aren't safe to release. It believes your dreams are dangerous. But when you start taking even small action, you weren't sure you could take, your brain updates its story. It says, "Wait, maybe I can do this. Maybe I don't need to know everything first. Maybe I am the kind of person who starts things and sees them through." And that story? That's where self-belief lives. Confidence is never about being fearless. It's about doing the thing despite the fear and showing yourself that you won't break. Every small act becomes a receipt, a record, a line in your personal history that says, "I didn't give up. I showed up, even when it was hard, even when it was scary, even when I was unsure." And that's how confidence grows. Not overnight, but in layers, like bricks, each one laid down by action. You might not trust yourself right now. That's okay. Start building a track record. Start creating proof. Show your own mind that you're reliable, that you're courageous, that you follow through. You can't fake this. You can't shortcut it. But you can start it today. Because the moment you do one small, hard thing, you collect your first piece of evidence. And that one piece, it changes the game. We often talk about starting something, a dream, a project, a new path, like it's just about goals, like it's a career move, a productivity decision, a to-do list item. But starting isn't just tactical. It's personal. It's emotional. It's spiritual. Starting is a declaration, a quiet but defiant statement that says, "My life matters, and I'm going to act like it." Because here's what happens when you keep postponing your dreams. You send a message to yourself. a subtle one, but a real one. You say, "My voice can wait. My vision can wait. Everyone else's priorities come first." And the more you repeat that message, the easier it becomes to shrink, to lower your standards, to stay invisible, to convince yourself that maybe what you want isn't that important after all. But deep down, you know that's not true. You know the longer you wait, the heavier the silence becomes. The more restless you feel, the more bitterness builds, because something in you knows you're not meant to coast. You're not meant to live life on mute. You're not meant to be the supporting character in your own story. Starting something doesn't mean you have it all figured out. It means you're choosing yourself. You're saying, "I'm worthy of trying. I'm worthy of failing and still being proud. I'm worthy of building something real, even if no one claps yet." That kind of action? That's not ego. That's not selfishness. That's self-respect in motion. Because it's easy to pour your energy into everyone else's needs. It's easy to delay your dreams until you feel more stable. It's easy to become so useful to everyone else that you forget to stay true to you. But when you stop, breathe, and decide to finally move even just a little, you say to yourself, "I matter. My needs matter. My voice matters. My timing matters. My joy matters." And that's not a motivational slogan. That's a boundary. That's a line in the sand. That's the moment you stop negotiating with your worth. Starting is not just a strategy, it's a stand. It's the moment your life turns from a loop into a direction. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to ask for permission. You already have it. The title of this chapter isn't just poetic. It's an invitation, a command, a challenge. Start where you stand. But let's pause on that word, stand. What does it really mean to stand? It means to plant yourself, to stop shrinking, to stop leaning on others for approval, to stop disappearing into the background of your own life. To stand is to reclaim space, the space your story deserves, the space your dreams require, the space your truth demands. Standing is presence. It says, "I'm here now. I'm not waiting. I'm not hiding. I'm not apologizing for wanting more." To stand is to drop the excuses, to stop outsourcing your worth, to stop playing small so others feel more comfortable. You don't have to roar. You don't have to convince anyone. You just have to root. Firm, quiet, certain. And here's the secret. Even before the success comes, even before the results appear, when you take that internal posture, something shifts. The world begins to respond. People notice the difference in your energy. You speak with more clarity. You make decisions more quickly. You stop negotiating with your own boundaries. And not because you're faking anything, but because you're finally embodying something, a standard, a frequency, a deeper self-trust that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. To stand doesn't mean you're unshakable. It means that even when you shake, you stay standing. You may cry, tremble, fall, but you rise again. And every time you rise, your roots grow deeper. People chase movement, momentum, motivation. But before any of that matters, you need something simpler and stronger. A stance. A moment where you say, "This is who I am, this is what I want, this is what I'm no longer willing to ignore." You don't need to be the tallest tree, but you need to stop pulling up your roots every time you doubt yourself. Because the people who shape the world aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who stand. And stay standing. This is the moment. Not because everything is perfect. Not because the fear is gone. Not because you feel totally ready. But because you've reached the edge of another decision. Keep waiting or begin. You already know what waiting gives you. You've lived it. You've felt the weight of ideas left on pause, dreams shelved for later. You've played out the what-ifs and the maybe-laters in your mind over and over. You've hoped. You've hesitated. You've questioned. And now you've heard the truth, not from me, but from somewhere inside you. That still, stubborn, sacred part of you that refuses to settle. The part that says, "This life is mine, this gift is mine, and I will not delay any longer." You don't need a ceremony. You don't need applause. You just need to begin. Quietly, boldly, privately, publicly, however you want, but begin. Begin with the version of you that still shakes. Begin with the story that still feels unfinished. Begin with the tools you already hold. Begin with the people who already love you. Begin with the wounds that haven't fully closed yet. Begin from the middle of your mess. Begin with the time you have, not the time you wish you had. Begin with the voice you've been silencing. Begin without the plan. Begin without the guarantee. Begin without needing to prove anything to anyone. Because when you do, when you finally take that first step, a new world opens up. And you realize it was never about waiting to be ready. It was about choosing to be real. Real enough to start. Real enough to risk. Real enough to rise, even if it's slow, even if it's messy, even if no one's watching. Because movement creates clarity. Action builds belief. And courage is never about feeling safe. It's about choosing what matters more than what scares you. So don't just take notes. Don't just feel inspired. Decide. This is your permission slip. This is your green light. This is your beginning. Start where you stand. And don't look back. The truth is, you're not behind. You're not unqualified. And you don't need permission. What you need is belief. And one brave step. There will always be obstacles. But there will never be another you. So stop waiting. Start where you stand. And show the world what's possible when you use what you've already got.